You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 FM and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in, I hope it is, sunny Northport, Florida. I just happened to be on vacation, and I'm sitting in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, in my truck because baby Evie T is in the back asleep. And Peter Bartollota is my guest today. And say hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter.
There you go. I knew you were going to go there. And he's got a very special guest in his house, too.
Yeah.
You want to take a picture of that?
Sure. Actually, I'm in my daughter's house in
nice.
Georgia. Where's Teddy? There he is.
There he is.
It's my boy, Teddy. Can you see him? He's asleep.
Teddy's asleep, and Evie T's asleep. And if Evie T wakes up,
he just got up.
There he is.
Hey,
Teddy. Hey, Teddy. So, there's a lot going on in the city of Northport. We just had budget meetings. I had a really nice interview with Alice White. If you guys haven't seen that or listened to it, it's live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can go back and check that interview out. She gave a lot of good insight on what's going on, what's happening. There's a lot of happenings in the city of Northport. And we can all talk about gas prices. We can all talk about these things that are happening right now, but interest rates are now climbing. We're at the high fives, maybe low sixes for some people, which is now going to bring down house purchases. And maybe not right away, but as it goes higher, that's going to happen. We've had lots of conversation about affordable housing. And so I want to start there with Peter and just ask a simple question. Is our government in the city of Northport responsible for affordable housing? Yes or no?
Not directly, no.
Can our city representatives do things to enhance affordable housing within our community?
Yes.
How would they go about that?
Two things. One is, and this is not a setup, but because we have not discussed this.
We have not.
But it sure sounded like. But anyway, I think one thing they can do is and it keeps getting misconstrued when I say it. So let me see if I can say it and have some time to explain it. It would be great if an affordable house in Northport was $1 million. Now, why do I say that? It means that it's above the average, which means people can afford homes above $1 million. So, and how do you do that? Create a strong economy, create an economic plan for the city that encourages high-paying jobs where people can afford a home. Think of Beverly Hills. What is the price of an affordable house in Beverly Hills? It's probably $1 million or more. So, when you look at it, it all comes down to the economics, and government can play a role in the economy primarily by creating an environment for the economy to boom. They can't do anything to make it boom. The private sector does that, but they can create the environment. The second thing they can do is work with people who are, help people who need assistance for their housing, but help them in a way that gets them out of an affordable house. Help them in a way that encourages them to get better, earn more money, improve their education, whatever it is. But there's a path out of affordable housing, and government can help on that through subsidies and what have you. The way I look at and this kind of transitions a little bit to homeless, and it's similar in affordable housing. Why are people homeless? And I think there's two reasons. One, they want to be homeless. When I was a young man, many, many decades ago, we called them hobos. And it was a lifestyle. You lived on the street, not on the street, but you lived in a travel mode. You jump freighters and you'd eat, hot dogs, and they had a whole group. Right. And you traveled around the country and lived in different places. And I say that's your choice. Go for it. This is America. You can do that. Not a problem. If you're homeless for no reason of your own, i.e. you couldn't find a job, your company closed, you got laid off, whatever, then we as a society have a responsibility to lift you up somehow, but to lift you up, not to continue to support. And that's where the difference starts to lie. And I think affordable housing is in that same boat. So anyway, that's my quick thoughts on that.
So let me ask you this. Can a local government set tax relief standards up to bring people in to have them build houses to work these things out in a more systematic way? Can a local government kind of incentivize the build of maybe a small house community so that the homes are more affordable, that your one or two people can live in a smaller house? And I know that we've had talks about small homes in Northport, and they really don't have any interest in doing that. But our build out now is 2 years out. We've got people who are living in cars, who are professionals living in cars, and we know of them, and I've had these discussions at City Hall, and my broker's been involved in them, and I'm trying to find maybe a different conversation. We know why, and these are people who are able to afford more. We're talking that $1 million home, and we do have those in Northport, by the way.
Sure.
Welland Park is filled with $1 million homes right now, and things are moving. And we've got the estates. We've got $1 million homes all over Northport, where truthfully, back in 2008, the whole conversation about the Welland Park, or back then the West Village area, was to have nothing but $1 million homes, and it wasn't supposed to be the homes that are there currently. It was supposed to be over a half-acre $1 million home, this luxurious build out. We do have Lennar, who took that over, revamped the whole thing, and those houses are now selling for over $1 million, which is crazy. And I will emphasize crazy on that, because the reality of what is happening in our market right now is that in our lifetimes, we probably will never see this kind of growth at these margins that we're having right now. And people want to believe this is an everyday occurrence, and it is absolutely not. You're looking at 4 to 6, maybe 7% a year on the growth of a home, and that's if you're blessed. Okay, so the reality of 125% gain in 1 year, not a chance. It's just not normal. So we've been in kind of a weird time frame to have discussions about, are we having an economic downturn? Are we hurting? Are we hurting for homes? Well, our inventories are at an all-time low because people are buying them up. They're buying them up with cash, a lot of them. They're not financing. So even the cash buyers that are coming in now, they're still going to come in. They're still going to do their things. And here's a good question, Kathleen. How do you lift up a retired person who can't afford a place to live? I love the question. How do we lift them up? Peter, do you have a thought? Not that you're the older person in the room, because we're not that far apart from each other. Yeah. But no, I love the fact that Kathleen asked that question, because at the end of the day, our older class that is retired is now going back to work to afford to eat, let alone manage anything else right now. And Kathleen, if you want to put a post in there of what you're having to do to sacrifice or manage what you're doing now, please do, because I want more people to engage. But Peter, go ahead and give your thought.
You started this off by saying, could government play a role in affordable housing? And the answer is, of course, they could. But should they? I don't think they should. And here's why. If you create affordable housing, and I'll get to the senior issue in just a second, but if you create affordable housing, what does that mean? It means people who can't necessarily afford the houses in Northport right now, we're going to give them less expensive housing. So what does that do? It attracts people who can't afford to work and live in Northport to live in Northport. Well, that's a never-ending story then. That just keeps going on forever. You never get out of that cycle. There's no plan to get it out. So I don't think they should be doing that. I think they should be doing some transitional housing, we'll call it. But the person has to have a responsibility that says, I will be out of this housing if I don't do certain things. I've got to make more money. Let's not attract, and Sarasota did this, by the way. It got to the point where homeless from all over the country were coming to Sarasota. Who wouldn't? You could live on the street. You could make, it was a great lifestyle in the sun. You didn't have to live in Milwaukee in the winter. So they'd come here in the summer because they made it so appealing. They pulled that back. We don't want to get in that mode. And that's what gets me concerned when we start looking at affordable housing, because by definition, it means you can't afford to live in the city. So we're going to help you live in the city. Now, when it comes to seniors, that's different. And maybe we should have some senior facilities in apartments or homes or whatever for seniors to live in, because they paid their dues, they've done their work, they've done everything, and the economy is hitting us hard. I'm blessed, but not everybody is. And maybe we need a way to help them and transition them. And that is an ongoing process that says we treat our seniors with respect, and there's something there that we can do. I don't know what it is yet, but the other side of that coin says, if you can't afford to live in the city, don't live in the city. I don't live in Beverly Hills. I can't afford to live in Beverly Hills. So I'm not going to try to find a house in Beverly Hills. It doesn't make any sense. And if I found a house, I wouldn't be able to afford the lifestyle. So I'd be stuck in a house, and I couldn't afford the food. I wouldn't be able to afford the electric, and before I know it, I'm a burden. So, you got to go where you can afford to live.
And I want to go back to Kathleen here for a second, because she did ask a valid question. I don't know that we're going to give her the answer that she's looking for. You've got so many things pulling at the purse strings of the working class, let alone retirees, because retirees are very similar to the working class, who are on a set budget. And any time that you attack that set budget, it's a detriment to the lifestyle that they did or were projected to afford. And a lot of people moved to Northport because it was affordable. And now things have tightened up, not just, and I'm not even going to say just in the housing market. We've got food costs that are soaring. We've got gas prices that are soaring. We've got the electric that's going to soar. We've got gas, if you're fortunate enough to have natural gas in our communities. And there are some that do have natural gas, and natural gas is going to go up. There isn't one commodity that we're going to go through over the next probably 2 years that isn't going to be tugging at the purse strings of every single individual out there. But here's what I will say to that, is that the working class and the retirees of the world are going to bear the brunt of every single dime that's passed along, because people who have funds tend not to be at jeopardy so much as the ones who are counting pennies and dimes just to go to the grocery store or cut coupons. The rich don't cut coupons. They may have somebody do it, but they never collect on them. But the poor do the couponing. The poor do the stocking. They do all of these things. A couple sources that you may want to reach out to, even in the senior side of things, is some of your local churches. I know for a fact, because we do a lot of food drives, and I'm going to say this, and I want to take the shame. Stop thinking you're in a box and you gotta act like you don't need help. Sometimes in life, we just have to come forward and ask for help. And there are a lot of individuals out there, a lot of groups that are doing some really good things. Our social service department in Northport does a really bang up job of coordinating and keeping things going, and really trying to come up with solution driven ideas for the majority. And we're talking majority when we're talking working class and retired seniors, because unfortunately, you're bundled together. There's food banks that are operating two or three times a week in our communities. I know that you can get a hold of FPL, and there's a senior reduction of rate. There's hardship programs that are still available for even the COVID relief, because they're bundling a lot of this stuff with, and the truth of the matter is, it is the effect of COVID. We may not be battling COVID anymore at the standard that we were battling it before, and we've understood that now. But we still have those programs in place to assist people. So I want you to stop thinking of as I need to go beg. You're not begging. You're asking for assistance, whether it's through FPL, the local church drives, anything like that. And I want you to keep that in mind as you continue to go through this. Now, as far as helping seniors, there are job placement areas. You can go to the Goodwill, and they will help you get placed at Goodwill. I understand that you're still trying to go out there, but unfortunately, I believe I'm probably going to work the rest of my life. Whether I'm blessed or not, I don't know. I know I like doing what I'm doing, but I hope that I can work the rest of my life. There are people out there and seniors out there who can't. Peter, I know you've talked to a lot of citizens over the years about stuff like this. Have I missed anything, or is there something that you would add in?
Yeah, and I'm going to segue a little bit to the gas crisis going on right now, and then I'm going to bring it back to this. But what they're trying to do right now, Biden is doing it or trying to do it, and DeSantis said we're going to have a tax holiday in, I think, October. He wants to keep the revenue coming in while the tourists are here. But, that's not a solution, neither one, because after it's over, you go right back to where you were.
Yeah.
So here's a way I think government can play a role in these tough economic times. And these are tough economic times being brought on to the people through no cost of their own. I'm sorry, but it's bad policies at whatever levels that causes inflation, and it's hitting everybody in the pocketbook. But what if Northport got creative on this and said something like this? We're going to create a senior membership in Northport. If you're a senior citizen and you are, a homeowner, or you're renting or whatever, you get a membership card. And then to any business who wants to, they'll publish a list to all the businesses in Northport, and they will either accept a low of a 10% discount on a purchase or higher. And then each month maintain a website that a senior can go to. And I'll tell you one, Culver's. If you say I'm a senior, they give you a discount. A lot of people don't know that. Okay? But if they had the government can help, and maybe what they do for any company that is doing this, they give them a 10% discount on their property tax. Okay, or 5% discount. So it's both helping each other. When that business no longer needs to give that discount, with times are better now. Okay, it allows the market to find its level, but they don't get the discount anymore. When they pull away that discount, they no longer get the discount from the government. So a business that's paying $5,000 a year or $5,000 a year in taxes is going to get a $500 discount on their taxes.
Right.
That's a lot of hamburgers. You know what I'm saying? It might be a lot of food at Publix, and they're paying a lot more than $5,000 in property tax.
And I know that we've offered in the past, back, and I'm going to go back, and I know
where you're going.
I've been in Northport a long time, so I'm gonna have to go back to my Ohio days and say that we used to have a senior program, statewide, that had an initiative like that, and maybe that's something that I need to look into, maybe to see if there is anything out there on the state level that is represented like that. We used to have it was called the Buckeye card for seniors, and the Buckeye card gave a 10% discount everywhere you showed the Buckeye card.
Yep. Well, the company would have to agree to it.
Well, no, but that was the whole deal. Is you could actually go into a store and they would have a Buckeye label on the
Yep.
window, and you knew that company took the Buckeye discount card. Now that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yep.
But we've, over all these years, that it's kind of funny that we're going. Your history kind of repeats itself.
Well, I don't know what Ohio did, but I think you have to give something to the business because they're hurting too. Keep that in mind, folks.
Well, no,
Businesses are hurting too.
yeah,
So
this is a double-edged whammy right now because,
yeah,
I was having this conversation with my son because we meet in the middle ground on some issues, and on other issues we're kind of far apart, and I'm okay with that. Far apart is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you got to, and I'm going to say this too. Sometimes you have to talk to people and not yell at them and not bully them. Sometimes you have to listen on the other end, and you have to understand both sides. And there's what's called common ground. And I believe that we've forgotten as a society that there's common ground in everything. There is. Now, you have to have two willing participants to have common ground.
yeah.
And in saying that, the common ground here is the businesses are hurting, so are the people who are consuming. And it's all different levels on consumption. It's all different levels.
And John, that's why I said the government could give a discount on the taxes. They've proven they can do that. They're willing to give gas discounts. So come on, guys. Give if you're a property owner, let's say you take 10% of your taxes and you get that credited to you, that allows you to give that back to the community in discounts. When it reaches a point where you're giving out more than you can afford and it's passing your taxes, your tax discount, stop it. That's where the market finds its level. If you're a renter, I don't know what the percentage would be, but if you look at the rent that somebody is paying for a storefront or an office, what percentage of that would be taxes? And if you're offered a 10% discount on rent, I think that's a huge incentive for businesses to get behind this and promote it. And every business can participate. And if you're not in Northport, you can't participate. Sorry, it's a Northport program. And that's something I think the government can get into fairly quickly. It benefits both parties. And I think if I knew I could cut my expenses by 10% everywhere I go, from gas to you name it. Every store has an opportunity to participate. I think it's a win-win situation. Kathleen, I don't know if that answers your question, but there's within reason you can do it. There's also, you got to get to the reality. If you can't afford to live somewhere, I'm sorry, you got to move. I've had that happen in my career. I couldn't afford to live there anymore. I had to find someplace else.
Well, and let me ask you something else. And I will tell people about this because I met a group a couple of weeks ago, and they were up in Sun City, and it was retired veterans. I am going to have them as a guest on the show here in the very, very near future. They're going through the same thing. Now, I'm going to couple that right in with the seniors, because most of those guys, God bless them, seniors, a lot of them wartime veterans, they're all getting together, and there's a few of them who have leadership, and they are really talking about the need for, hold on a second, my baby is waking up. They're talking about the need for individuals to be able to get some help. And they have, what they do is they actually meet once a week at the Bob Evans in Sun City, it's amazing because they all congregate into one spot from all over the place. And they used to have people that came out of Sarasota County to their group, but those guys are getting older now. And, when you get older, things, don't continue on. Life does end. But they're doing the same thing now. They're meeting, they're congregating, and they're trying to come up with different solutions to make people get help they need, find solutions. It's a solution-driven group. They're trying to really assist all of the veterans that they can. But talk about a roadblock for a lot of the senior veterans that are out there. There just isn't the resources that they thought they were going to have. So they're coming up with resources. They're finding solutions. It's
Sure.
the same thing, and I'm going to say this. It's the same thing that I think we need to start doing for the senior class in our communities, individually in our communities. Is I think we need to have a senior group that comes in and meets. John, there are senior friendship centers. Yes,
Right.
I agree with that. But here's my question. The Senior Friendship Center, is there a group out there right now that I just did with the veterans group that specifically is designed for benefits or helping individuals on an individual basis find a solution for their need? And I don't know the answer to that. And I'm going to do some more investigating on that on my behalf, because I think if it's not, there we have enough business-minded, driven people who are seniors who would love to be able to take something like this on and build that project.
Well, yeah, and but going back to the concept I was just talking about, and the more I think about it, and I kind of came up with it as we were talking. I think that's a win-win for everybody. Think about this from an economic development standpoint. If Amazon put a distribution center in Northport, they would be employing a lot of people with good pay. Hello?
Yep, go ahead. You're on.
But can you imagine if you said to Amazon, you'd get a 10% discount on your property tax? If you offered seniors a 10% discount on Amazon? I mean, ultimately, now I'm taking it to the nth degree, but ultimately, I could cut my expenses by 10%. That's huge. That's huge. If you're making $100,000 a year, that's $10,000. If you're making $30,000 a year, it's $3,000. If you're making $15,000 a year, it's $1,500. It's a lot of money. And if you go to all the places you shop, by them supporting the program, the city's job would be to how do we communicate that to the seniors? Well, heck, you got our addresses. You know who we are. Send a letter to us. And each month, go to a website, and there's your companies that are participating in the program. I'll tell you, I know where I'd shop.
That's true.
And I'm not intimidated. I'm not feeling guilty. It's almost like when I go to Culver's, I always guess, hey, by the way, I'm a senior. I don't know what they give me, 5% off, whatever. But I don't do it. It's just kind of like a badge of honor, It's not like I'm going in and asking for handouts. So you can basically shop anywhere you want as long as that company is supporting it. Now, Northport would take a hit, but
and I'm going to say something too, because I think that what you just described as a badge of honor, other people take as embarrassment. I will promise you that the majority of the people out there, if you tell them you're a senior and you're in harm's way, you need some assistance, the majority of the people are going to help you.
That's not, John, wait a minute. That's not what I'm saying.
I know that.
You show me a senior who's an OP member who doesn't show their card every time they can to get a discount. That's what you're showing. It's a card. It's not I need help. It's just a senior card. Maybe you can add veterans to the equation.
Here's the funny thing about, and that's one side of it, but I'm talking about the other side of it. When somebody knows that they have to have help, that's being offered by a company who's really truly doing the right thing, and they're saying, well, and the badge of honor thing is the beautiful thing is they're giving you that badge of honor, saying, here, take it, do this.
You don't have to use it. If you want it, use it.
Correct.
The nonprofits pick up that slack, and they always have. I think what's happened is the nonprofits got blown away with this.
They've been blown away for 3 years now.
Yeah, it's been crazy, and they need more help. And you asked before, how does the government participate in that? And I think they need to get creative and think outside the box,
Right.
and come up with something. They're willing to give away revenue from gas. This is a small segment of the community. It's called the seniors. So I think that's a way that kind of benefits everybody. You're always going to have the people that really can't. It helps, but it's not enough, and we need more. And that's where your pantries and everything else can step in.
And I've been through a lot in my lifetime, as you have too. So we've transitioned from the $8 an hour, I got 2 kids, to moving forward and getting degrees and moving on in life. Blessed on some of the journey. Other times in the journey, we were looking at going, we don't need a handout, we need a hand up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to what you said earlier, because the hand up is so much more valuable than hand out.
Absolutely.
And we've got a government right now on a national scale who really doesn't believe in a hand up. They believe in a handout. And I think we have to change some beliefs. And I'm not talking about hurting people. I'm talking about actually encouraging them with growth and encourage them to come out of where they're at. Granted, you're not going to be able to help everybody. We all have to come to the realization that not everybody is going to get help. Not everybody is going to take help. There are going to be people in our world that they're happy. Unfortunately, John Maxwell, really good speaker who I've listened to for years. He's awesome. Past preacher, now a public speaker. John Maxwell said, you have to learn to love people where they're at. And truthfully, we've lived by that motto for a long time. Love people where they're at, because you can have these conversations, you can have open dialogue. And Kathleen, I know for a fact, we have not even come close to giving you a solution. And I wish you would add something in so we knew exactly where to take your conversation, maybe to direct it more specific. Because if there's something I can do to help along the way, or maybe ask people how to help along the way and get back with you, I would love to be able to do that. And I know Peter would be on board with the same thing. Because trying to figure out how to help people and move people forward is really a cool thing. And I'd rather help you up and rather help you through this than anything else. And I think as a society, we have to learn that, a handout isn't the answer. And a hand up is more of a great idea, because you can build friendships, you can build camaraderie, you can build relationships in the business world. You can get yourself back on track. As I said, we're not going to be able to help everybody. And those who need that assistance will find it one way or another. Go ahead, Peter.
It goes back to that old saying, if I fish for you today, you'll eat today. If I teach you to fish, you'll eat for a lifetime. So what are we doing to reach out and pull people up and get people up into the society? And that's fundamental to living in America, in my opinion. You have that opportunity. So many people I speak to feel that they don't have that opportunity. And it's not that they don't, it's that they don't know how to pursue it. They don't know how to get that, how to open that door, and that's where your point of bringing people together that have that skill set and utilizing seniors who have gone through that can teach them from experience. I think we need to do more of that and getting people and thinking more positively about the future. I had somebody tell me once, and this is a horrible way to say it, but life's a bitch and then you die. It's problems. Life has got problems. You got to deal with them. And everybody's got their own. Bill Gates has his. Elon Musk has his. Joe Biden has his. No matter who you are, you have problems. You got to deal with them and move on and move up. And constantly, but it's what makes success so great. It's because of the work you put into it that got you there.
So I'm gonna ask you another question. When it comes down to and I was pointing just now because the Amazon guy just I'm sitting in my truck still, and the Amazon guy just dropped off packages. So
There you go.
you get interactive TV when you're watching on Facebook and the radio.
Yep.
Things happen, and I liked what you said. Things happen in life because I there's a lot that happens in politics in our lifetimes, and the funny thing is during all the transitions. I don't care from one style government to the next, to Democrat to Republican to kind of an independent thinker to maybe even a Democrat who goes mid or a Republican who goes middle of the road. The country is still here. We're still moving forward, and things are going to change. And the boomerang effect, when you push too hard one way, is what happens. And it happens on both sides. When you're staunch one way, sorry to say, you're going to get the other side. If you're staunch the other way, you're going to get the other side. I wish people would learn that if you could compromise and get to some middle ground, you wouldn't have all these dangerous territories that we're leaping into on the far right or on the far left. There's got to be some middle ground to bring common sense into politics. And that has a lot to do with what's happening today. There's no common sense in politics. And we're having these issues on a national scale because we don't have common sense people.
No, we have everything is a political conversation, but expectations are so important and what people expect. And as you were talking, it reminded me of probably one of the most biggest events in my life in teaching me something about patience. And I was a Cub Scout. So if you can picture this, right? I mean, my little Cub Scout uniform.
That had to be 10 years ago?
Maybe, yeah, right. And we did a Christmas play. And in the play, the Cub Scouts would be dressed up as little elves. And Santa Claus would be sitting there. And, we're complaining. Oh, why don't we have this? And what's wrong with this? And why can't I do that? And I want to do the hammering. And I want to do the painting. And all we're doing is complaining. No solutions. We're complaining. And Santa Claus is sitting there. And finally he says, I've had it. I'm Santa Claus. I'm magical. Poof, you're all grown up. And the curtain comes down. And when the curtain goes back up, there were the same elves, but it was their fathers dressed up in the same costumes. And they're putting wheels on the cars, and the wheels are crooked and they're falling off, and the paint is spilling all over the place, and nothing was being done right. And they're all complaining. And Santa Claus says, it takes time. And it's life. You takes time. You grow through life. You grow to those experiences. You grow to those skill sets. You don't read a book and you have it. Life is all about experience, and it takes time, and it's very frustrating. But whenever I hit those moments, I always remember that play, and it stuck with me all these years.
Well,
so it takes time, folks.
It does take time, and things do transition. People, I'm going to ask this because we've watched Northport now, really in the last 20 years, grow beyond what everybody thought. And I truly believe this. Even the people that were our commissioners 20 years ago, when they said we were going to grow, I didn't think they were going to envision this fast. Nobody did, because the whole state of Florida has been engulfed in growth at such a potential that I don't think anybody was truly prepared for it. Truly, on all levels. And I say that because we've got working class who used to make Port Charlotte and Northport the home so they could go to work elsewhere. We now have our working class trying to figure out what city they can land in to go to work in Sarasota or Fort Myers. And it isn't Sarasota or Fort Myers that they can go to unless they're getting 5 or 6 adults to stay in the same place. And the reality is we've actually outgrown on a economic scale. We've outgrown our working class. And Sarasota, now, that had the roadmap. Venice had that same roadmap. And now we have the same roadmap. It is not new. This is the same thing that has continued to happen for decades. So I'm not blaming Biden. I'm not blaming Trump. I'm not blaming Bush. I'm not blaming Clinton. I'm not blaming any of our past governors, our Senate representatives individually. Here's what I can say. Which one of them is going to change for the next 40 years on how we're perceiving what is going to happen? Because that's the question. It isn't the question of did the R do it or did the D do it? It's, guess what? I don't think anybody saw the future of what's happening today on a scale that they could actually put a game plan together to curtail or set up the working class for success. Either party.
Well, I'm going to agree with you from a government standpoint. But I'll tell you this: Sid Kitson saw Babcock Ranch 20 years ago. Okay, Mattamy Homes. Rick Severance saw Mattamy Homes 15 years ago. What's happening in West Villages? Schroeder saw Lakewood Ranch decades ago. Their visions, because I met with each one of these people and I've seen their vision before they put a shovel on the ground. They see it. Government doesn't think that way, though. Government is usually playing catch up to the private sector. Wouldn't it be great if they can start to partner in a better way, to take the brilliance and the foresight and the visioning of the private sector
and the flexibility
and couple it with the conservative element of government, how their cautious side, because private sectors also go bust. So you take some of the strengths of government and put them together, and what could happen. And I always envision that's what would be the greatest thing for Northport. I haven't seen that happening. It's usually the fish wagging the tail. And you think about this, West Villages was what, 30 years ago they bought it? Okay, they annexed it in. Yep. Nothing happened. We keep talking about an interstate on Yorkshire, and everybody in government will tell you it's 20 years to get an interstate. Well, 15 years have passed. Where is it? And yet a diamond exchange gets put in at University Parkway, and it's from concept to ending, it's done in 3 years. We've been talking about River Road for how many decades, John?
At least 2 that I've been here, and it's probably been longer than that.
So what's the common denominator? Bendison was the expressway, the exchange. They got behind it. They needed it for the town center, and for that center, they needed a better exchange. It got done. Mattamy Homes comes in and takes West Villages from a concept, makes it a reality. Sid Kitson, concept to a reality. So the private sector knows how to move and move quickly. Why? Because that's what it does. Every single day of its life, it does that. If you could partner with, and we've got some of the brightest minds in our area, and I don't see us utilizing them as well as we could. But we need to have a partnership. I'll bet you, if you put the private sector together with government and coming up with creative solutions that move us from affordable housing, but with a hand up program, you'd get different results. To get affordable housing, a lot of these guys will put it in just to get government off their back. And they're not losing any money, and they're still putting the homes in. But we need to be more creative in our approach. And we've got to come up with 20 and 30-year visions and plans, and then move everything towards that, so that people who can afford to live here live here. And if you can't afford to live here, do whatever you got to do, but you can't afford to live here.
So let me ask you this, because you've been on really both sides. You've been on the private side. You've really kind of worked your way through the government side, with what you've done in your lifetime. How does a citizen who wants to see change, how does a citizen help establish the change with a private group? How do they go about doing that? Do they introduce that, go out and work on it, maybe get some people who are like-minded, and then work on it to get the private side of it involved, and then go to a commissioner, or what do they do?
I think what you do is you get elected officials that share the vision, elected, because it all comes down to that. If you've got elected officials that don't agree with your vision, having a private group with a different vision is not going to persuade them to shift. They've got their vision. They're going to follow their vision. I don't think we want to get into it, but you look at Roe versus Wade. What a lot of people don't realize is the conservative movement has taken decades to get that overturned by electing people who shared that vision and putting the people in office. And ultimately, they got all the right people in office and they got it done. That's how it works in the United States. It all comes down to, in my experience has been, I don't care how big your group is. Vision Northport had 1,000 members. It didn't matter. Government will do what it wants, when it wants, and how it wants. So the trick is to get the elected officials that share that. And that's tough when you've got a city where the elected officials change every 2 years. There's always a new commissioner coming in every 2 years, or an election for a commissioner. They serve a 4-year term, but they're alternating. So there's 2 commissioners this election cycle. It'll be 3 commissioners the next election cycle. So it's just the way it is.
Well, aren't we sitting in a spot, and not that I want to talk about Roe v. Wade, because I'm sure I'm going to have these conversations down the road.
Sure.
And people are so fired up on both sides of this issue that once again, I'm going to go to extremists are extremists on both sides of the aisle. The common sense in the middle calls for some cooler heads to prevail. They had to prevail back then, and they got to prevail today. That's who we are. That's what we do. The funny thing is all these things are happening, and once again, everybody who was alive yesterday is still alive today. All things are moving forward. There's not a misstep right now for one individual, not one individual who's on this ground walking around. Not one individual is in harm's way because of that decision today. And you have to let everything play out. That's what we do with every single government directed or elected decision that happens to us. Back when Roe v. Wade was introduced, there was a massive flip. There was a massive change. There was all kinds of things happening out there, but the everyday working class person didn't feel it the same day. No. It all trickles down. It all happens that way. And there are resources. There's more resources in place today on that one topic than there are feeding people. Yeah, I hate to say it, on a national scale.
And to your point, to get something done at the federal level, it takes years for it to trickle down and have its impact on your day in and day out life. What I like about local politics is it's much more immediate. It might take a year or so, but you can actually see shift and change at the local level much faster than you can at the federal level.
Well, and that's why we promote the local level at a much higher clip than we do on the federal level. We talk about the local vote. We talk about the local participation. And the truth of the matter is, we'll take Roe v. Wade here for a second. If you're not involved in state politics and you're for Roe v. Wade, shame on you. Yep. Now you need to get involved in local stuff, not federal stuff. Yep. I think bringing it back home is going to highlight a lot of individual states at multi-level than we had in the past. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know. The truth of the matter is none of us know whether it's good or bad. We're just scared to go there.
Well,
we were scared to go there back when they changed it, and now we're scared to go there that they win it. It went
Well,
there.
they say 50% of the states are going to take it away. But here's what I love about America, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. If I live in Germany and I don't like the laws in Germany, I have to leave the country. If I don't like the laws in England, I got to leave the country. If I don't like the laws in my state in America, I can go to another state that has more favorable laws to my beliefs. I have that option. There's very few countries, to my knowledge, that have that. And I think it's really smart to put decisions at the local level. It's going to put pressure one way or the other on the elected officials in that local area. And if the majority of the people believe in something, that's what the law of that land should be. It may be different in another state, but that's the majority of the people in that state. So,
and I did listen to a podcast. I'm going to say this because people that don't know of Lisa Rowe in the Northport area, I'm going to have her on. I'm going to try to get her scheduled out because she works for an organization that does aftercare for abortion. And I listened to her podcast today, and because we're talking about this now, it was. I have to say, I'm impressed by her anyway. I always have been. She was a teacher at Northport High School. She's really grown as an individual. But listening to her podcast today put a completely different, calming spin on where a lot of people throw down judgment and throw down a gauntlet right away. And I think anytime you're willing to throw down a gauntlet without listening, you kind of need to back up and maybe regroup and be willing to listen to people on the other side. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, if you're not willing to listen and you're willing to shut them off and shut them down, that mistake is on you 110%. Yep. And I'm going to go right back.
You're breaking up, John.
I'm going to go back.
Breaking up.
To Cat.
Whoops. You were breaking up on me there.
You got too hot. But go ahead, Peter.
No, you were breaking up. I couldn't hear everything you were saying.
Is it getting better?
You're kind of breaking up at the camera too. The voice was breaking up. We're getting to the end of the show anyway, but things take time, but get involved. And if we got an election coming up. We got a primary in August. Call the candidates. Their numbers are readily available at the clerk's office and Northport City Clerk. And call them up. And if you believe in something, ask them. Don't tell them what you believe in, but just tell them, where do you stand on this issue, and see where they stand. Don't tell them how you feel, because a lot of times elected, politicians have a tendency to answer the question the way you want it answered. So, but ask them the question, and then ask them, how are they going to do it? How would they make whatever it is they're saying they're going to do? How would they do that? Are you hearing me, John, or? Hello? Are you hearing me? No? I can't hear you.
Marie, can you come on and end the show?
I don't have makeup or anything on, but I'm coming in. We're having some problems, John, and his. I'm trying to read in here. With his signal and all. He's breaking up. So, Peter, I really think that your show was great today with John and with all the different discussions and with seniors, and that there are resources out there. But you're right. A lot of people, don't know where to go ask or where to ask, and what John was talking about are sometimes concerned about asking.
Sure.
And I'm one of those. I don't know if I would ask, and I know that without some of the income, even when you lose your house, you may end up in a different financial category. I'm going to mute you, John, because you have all sort of static coming in. So, Peter, and you've been really, really fortunate because you made a career, and I did too. However, things happen in life, just like with us. We sold our business. We ended up getting it back, and that was our retirement.
Yep.
Getting it back, and everything was ruined, and we had a piecemeal it and stuff. And what we thought we'd have for financials, we don't have for financials in our retirement because we had put our eggs all in that basket and made a wrong decision who we sold it to. So,
Yep.
yeah.
So, and I've been at the food pantry. So, I mean, I don't want you to think I've never experienced that side. So I've had bad times in my life. I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I've been in business for myself since the 80s. So it's a long time, most of my career. So,
yeah, you gotta go. We can stay on there, but to everybody that's listening on the radio, this is WKDW 97.5 FM Rural Community Radio out of Northport, Florida. Okay, we're off air. We're off air, John, but we're still on social media. I'll bring you back on one sec, John, and I'm getting off. Go ahead. I think you're back on, aren't you?
Yes, you can stay on, though.
John, who wants to look at me?
Oh, you look beautiful. You look beautiful.
All of the world wants to look at you.
Yeah, absolutely. But you guys really brought up a good point about what you were talking about today, because so many of us, and I'm 72, and I know Peter's a little bit older than I am. John, you're 58 or so in that age group. As you don't think about that stuff when you're younger.
Yeah.
I had 401ks and I had that kind of stuff, but I didn't really plan for now because you don't think you're going to live that long. I don't know if that was in your mind. Peter, did you ever think that you were going to live to be your age?
Well, I'm blessed. My dad passed at 88. My mom passed at 98. So I've got, I figured I was going to live at least until my 80s with my gene pool. But I've been hit by this economic downturn. I've had to move dollars around and get them into better financial buckets than they were in. But this is hitting everybody. It's you just got to watch your P's and Q's. But I think there's ways the government can get creative and not, dropping the price of dropping the tax on gas. I think I saw an article on it. It would affect the average pocketbook something like $10 a month. Now, every little bit helps. I agree with that. So,
but that doesn't make sense because where that tax goes, like here in Florida, we don't have a state tax, so we pay for our roads through that sales tax, and that's part of it. And you have to look at that. And one of the things, and this is my personal opinion, you have to follow the money, and the petroleum companies right now are making the biggest profits they've ever made. I mean, if you go and research it, all of them are making.
Sure.
John wants to say something, and when that happens, and when that happens, you do have to follow the money, and it's kind of political. If they're following a party, this is my own opinion. If they're following a party and want certain people into their I'm going to mute you a minute because we're getting back feed with you, John. But if you want to get the politicians in place that you want to, because they're after big business, and I will say that about some of Trump's policies were about big business, and we're giving them tax breaks and opening up federal lands for.
Marie, let me ask a question here. When is the last time you or anybody you know or anybody you've ever heard of worked for a poor person? I mean, I'm sorry to say.
Well, no,
nobody.
Yeah, we don't work for poor people.
No.
Yeah.
So what when they I hate it when they start to attack the business side. They don't tell you that the oil industry lost billions of dollars during COVID. Okay, they're on the negative side. Now it's only the positive, and you've got a policy with a government, a president that's saying you're going to be out of business in 10 years. I'll tell you, if I were the CEO of Exxon, I'd be making as much money as I can right now, sticking in a bank and trying to figure out how we diversify in 10 years because we're going to be out of business in the oil business. And you want us to lower the price? Come on. You know, with all due respect, we've got elected officials, including our president, who hasn't worked a day in his life for anybody except the government. So his decisions are inconsequential. They don't affect his personal life. You know, the other side of this story, the oil industry has turned around and given the president what they need. You know, a lot of the leases, the oil leases, what people don't realize is most of them, first of all, are small businesses. They're not the big guys. But they use, if I've got 100 land leases, I may drill on 20% of them. I may use another 40 or 50% of them as equity that I'm holding up to as collateral for the loans I have to take to drill. And I've got the others in reserve for when these are done that I can go into more. So it's not just as they try to make it very cut and dry, and it's not. So give me somebody who's got a business experience telling me, let them talk to the oil industry about.
And let me add something in, Peter, because here's the other thing. We've now had a president, and really, I'll give him credit. This is the first president that I remember who said we need to build more refineries. Now, genius plan 25 years ago. Of course, that's when he was in his prime. Okay. Now, that's not a shot across his bow because he's doing the damage himself. What he said when he ran was, I'm going to close fossil fuels. And now he's asking them to invest their profit into fossil fuels.
And he's putting policy in place. What he said he would do in the election, policies in place to make that happen. And then he asked them for their help. Yeah. I mean, come on, wait a minute, time out, guys.
Not going to get their help because.
And what you're doing, excuse me, but now you turn around and you get everybody into electric cars, which the average person can't afford. Okay.
Well, they don't have enough electric things, and they don't last long enough.
No, so we don't have the infrastructure to build that. Okay, we don't have the dollars to build that. Now you're taking an entrepreneur like Elon Musk, and he's getting put out of business. Okay, who's the power players here? And I'll tell you, I will believe politicians when they pass a law that says no elected official can earn more than 10% of their salary while in office for a period of 10 years from when they leave office. Okay? So if they leave office, they have to get a regular job, but they all go in as regular Joes and turn around and become multimillionaires when they get out. How did that happen? How does that happen?
Corruption. A lot of people don't understand what's up there. Yeah.
So I don't want to hear any one of them telling me, blame the oil companies, blame the other guys. I don't believe, and I'll say it now, I'll just say it. There is nothing in this country that has gone wrong, from the oil crisis to the inflation to the crisis at the border where we're pulling in something like 500,000 immigrants a month coming into this country that are illegal. I mean, what part of illegal don't you get? Okay? And all of this is not his fault. Whose fault is it? I mean, I want a president that accepts blame, says, look, we are in tough shape. This country, we've got a crisis at the border, we've got a crisis with gas, we've got a crisis on the economy. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it.
Peter, the thing is the people that run for those higher offices, maybe there's a few that go in it with good intent, and there may be, but it's about power. There's a lot of stuff there. You get at that level, they're assigned lobbyists. People don't realize that when you're on a committee that there's a pay to play for those committees and stuff that they're and I look at them. They're the ones voting for their term limits. They're the ones voting for their what they get for pensions and all that. what we need to do, and we can't do it unless we go after become into that rift of politics. And John doesn't want to do it. I don't want to do it. You do it local level. I don't know about we're at the age we don't want to go that high, but
Well,
I don't want to be there. I don't want to be that person there.
Here's a crazy solution for you. Two things. One is either let's get term limits, and I was never a term limit person. I never believed in them, but I'm believing in it now. Or let's only elect billionaires. If you're not a billionaire, you can't run because you can't buy a billionaire. What are you going to give them? They got everything they need. So what they're in it for the most part, is legacy. They want their name to go down in history for being a good guy, right? So let's put elected officials in. Now, I'll give you my philosophy on what we should do with taxes, and this will change the entire makeup of the country. Go with a flat tax. I don't care if it's 1% or 99%. It makes no difference. Everybody pays the same amount of money. You report how much you earned, and you get taxed that a month. There is no deductions. If you have a bad year, tough, hopefully next year will be better. Then what you do, because the rich won't go for that, of course, and most people won't. But then what you do is on April 15th, you issue stock in the United States of America, right? You get stock in the country. On July 15th, you pay dividends, which of course means you have to be running you got to be showing a profit. You can't be showing deficits all the time. And now what happens in a company when your stockholders see that you're not getting if you're not making the money, they get rid of the board of directors, right? That's what they do, which is our Congress. And then what you do is the stock you own in the country is transferable. So I can will it to my kids, my stock, and then they work, their stock gets added. My grandkids, by the time I get to my grandkids or great-grandkids, they won't have to work. They've got the money coming in from the stock in the country.
I
right?
like
Eliminate Social Security.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, eliminate Social Security, because if I'm earned enough stock, which is really what we're doing, isn't it? I earned enough stock in the country, I get paid a dividend every month, which would be equal to my Social Security check. Now, it all predicates on the fact that the government needs to actually be they got to be operating in the positive. So I don't care what you say. I don't care it all comes down to money in my pocket. Am I making more money or less money? And that's it. The rest of this stuff is way too complex for me to understand. You guys figure it out. Okay. And there's my solution. Everybody's happy.
I like that solution. It's kind of, yeah, and even up in Alaska, because they take some of the people that live in Alaska actually get money. Yes. I think it's yearly that they get it, or do they? I don't think it's monthly. I think it's yearly that they do, because they get proceeds from what the state gets from, and that's from the petroleum taxes and all. Yeah, that they have there. So we lost John. His stuff, he was freezing, and it was going in a spin, and then he was gone. So to everybody that was tuning in and listening to Peter and John, and then had me, and while you guys were on air, something happened and I lost you. I had to talk on the radio just for a little bit, and then I had to come into the room, and I got you guys back on. I've never had that happen before. But to all of the people that listen today, thank you for the privilege of having your time. And you've been listening to John Rawlings and Peter Bartollota, and I'm Marie LaBraz from WKDW 97.5 FM, Real Community Radio in Northport, Florida. See you again next time.
Bye-bye.
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 Okay, if I can get it to go off. Okay.